Today, we'll look at how to translate unknowns. There are times that the source language will use words and ideas that are not familiar. If you do not know what the source word means, the translation notes and important terms pages will help you understand its meaning. Unknown words can be in several categories: historical facts, objects such as animals, food, and items, cultural practices, or concepts. This is a lesson that will introduce how to translate unknowns. Look at the lesson on each category to learn more. You might also want to go to the lesson on copy or borrow. Sometimes the translator may not know an animal that is used in the Bible. In John chapter 10, verse 12, the word wolf is used as a way to describe an animal who is harmful to God's people. There are many things to describe about a wolf, but what is important in this verse is that it is a fierce and dangerous animal that frightens and harms the sheep. If a wolf is an unknown animal in your culture, you could substitute an animal that looks similar and that has similar characteristics. For example, large wild dogs are similar to wolves. They attack and eat other animals, such as lambs. So, wolves could be translated with a generic term like wild dogs or fierce dogs, or with the name of a specific animal like a dog that your people know of, such as coyotes or jackals. You could also use a general descriptive phrase such as a dangerous wild animal that focuses on the characteristics that are being highlighted in the text. Now, let us look at helpful information to translating historical facts. It is very important to remember that if the term expresses an historical fact, then that fact must be kept in a translation. For example, in Mark chapter 11, verse 13, Jesus cursed a fig tree. To substitute any other kind of tree would be untrue to a historical fact. A descriptive phrase could be used like a tree that bears fruit called figs. Another example is in John chapter 12, verses 14 through 15, where it says that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey's colt, which fulfilled a prophecy in the Old Testament. Since it says that Jesus was sitting on a young donkey, the translation should not say that he sat on an ox. If the word for donkey does not exist in the target language, the source text word could be used and explained in the target language text. For example, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the young of a kind of work animal called a donkey. This is different from the use of an animal as part of a teaching or illustration. In that case, it is not a matter of historical fact. Another area where you might be unfamiliar with is cultural practices. There might be many differences between the biblical culture and the target language culture. Sometimes a cultural substitute can be used, but be careful not to change any historical facts. For example, in Jewish culture, grief and repentance for sin were shown by wearing a rough type of cloth, sackcloth, and putting ashes on the head. Wailing was another sign of grief. In other cultures, grief may be shown in different ways, but if this practice was something that actually happened, it needs to be recorded as such, with an explanation that tells what it means, perhaps using a practice from the target culture that has the same meaning. See the lesson on translating scriptures, culture, for more information. Here are some suggestions to keep in mind when translating a term that is not familiar in your language. Use a descriptive phrase. You will most likely need to use a phrase to explain the meaning of the unknown word. It is important only to describe the part of the meaning which is being used in the particular verse being translated. Substitute something similar. At times, the exact word may be unknown to the people of the target language, but there might be something similar that could be used in its place. Use a foreign word from another language. Foreign words are words taken from a language that is not usually spoken by the people of the target language. You could also use the foreign word together with a general word or a descriptive phrase. Use a word that is more general in meaning. An example would be work animal, which is more general than the word donkey, because a donkey is a kind of work animal. Use a word or phrase that is more specific in meaning. Sometimes there is no general word in the target language to describe the term. Therefore, you can give specific examples of the term being referred to. An example would be if there is no word for lights to refer to heavenly bodies. You could possibly say the sun and the moon, using specific words. This concludes the lesson on how to translate unknowns. Remember, the translation notes and the important terms pages are excellent references when you are uncertain as to the meaning of a source word that relates to unknowns such as animals, historical facts, or cultural practices. At all times, remember, keep the translation clear, natural, and accurate to the meaning.